They were laughing about it on the train. 2 soldiers, 1 war, 1,000 silence.
Okay, let's unpack this. Picture yourself on a train, right?
Mm.
Just minding your own business.
Mm-hmm.
And you overhear something that just stops you. A conversation.
Yeah.
That's where we start today. An Israeli reservist hearing soldiers bragging about, well, shooting kids, burning homes in Gaza.
And the shock of that moment, the silence that apparently followed, it really sets a stark tone.
It really does. It's kind of a doorway into what we're looking at today. We've gathered a lot of material for this deep dive.
First-hand accounts, videos, audio, societal observations, all around the recent Gaza conflict.
Our main source is this document. You heard us in that train. Testimonies of war, complicity, and the echoes of silence.
But we're also pulling from, news reports, human rights analyses, legal documents, trying to get a fuller picture.
Exactly. It's complex and, frankly, pretty troubling stuff emerges.
So our goal here is really to navigate this, pull out the key insights, understand the different layers.
Yeah, moving beyond just the headlines to the kind of the raw experiences.
Yeah.
What does it all mean?
Hopefully providing some clarity, those aha moments, without getting lost in the sheer volume of it.
Right. So let's start with the soldiers. The testimonies from Israeli soldiers themselves.
Okay. The veteran group Breaking the Silence, they've been collecting these since October 2023.
Giving soldiers a space to talk, often after years of keeping quiet. So what are they actually saying? What did they see? What were they ordered to do?
Well, one thing that comes through really consistently is descriptions of these large-scale operations.
Large scale how?
Basically racing entire neighborhoods in Gaza,
Right.
systematically, with apparently very little restraint.
Right.
One Armor Corps commander, for instance, he described the Gaza perimeter as a kill zone, just straight up.
A kill zone. What does that even mean in practice?
According to a tank reservist, they quote, it meant, essentially everything gets mowed down, everything, every building and every structure inside that buffer zone, just gone.
It's hard to comprehend. So not targeted strikes then?
It seems not, based on these accounts. No. We hear from a combat engineer, right? His job was demolition.
Okay.
And he talks about being tasked with blowing up house after house after house and expressing this, deep disbelief.
Disbelief why? Because of the scale or?
Both, it sounds like. He said they often didn't get clear reasons, questioned if it was legitimate, He mentioned the rule of proportionality, but felt it was applied very vaguely.
So a sense that it wasn't strictly necessary.
He admitted, that what he saw felt beyond what I can justify as needed. And it's not just him. This pattern emerges across testimonies.
Suggesting maybe a shift in how operations were conducted?
Yeah.
Destruction becoming more normal?
That's the potential implication, that destroying civilian infrastructure became almost routine, maybe even encouraged.
The sheer amount of it sounds overwhelming.
It does. There's one account cited as a grisly example detailing orders to, and I'm quoting here, deliberately, methodically, and systematically annihilate whatever was within the designated perimeter.
Annihilate whatever was there.
Including, entire residential neighborhoods, public buildings, mosques, and even cemeteries.
Cemeteries, too. Good grief.
And then there's a sergeant. He described how his unit, in areas declared pretty much empty of any Gazans, would just routinely blow up houses, or what was left of them.
Routinely.
Yeah.
Like just another day at the office.
He even mentioned daily quotas, like orders to work on 7 houses a day.
7 houses a day.
Yeah. He described watching populated areas turn into this death zone of enormous proportions, basically a vast wasteland.
Staggering. The idea of a daily demolition target. What about the people? The civilians who live there? Were they warned? Evacuated?
That's another really troubling point raised in these testimonies. The system for warnings, it seems, wasn't consistent.
How so?
One soldier talked about civilian cleanup, right, but said there wasn't a standard procedure for telling families to leave. It often fell to individual commanders.
One commander might handle it differently than another.
Apparently. Some might use fire to clear an area, others wouldn't. It suggests a lack of clear rules, maybe a lack of accountability from higher up.
Leaving it to individual discretion seems risky for civilians.
That's the concern, yes. And then you have a senior infantry officer offering this chilling logic. He called the borderline a kill zone again.
Why? What was the rationale?
Because it gave Israeli forces a commanding view, he said. He admitted getting orders to destroy schools, factories, farms, homes up to 1 kilometer inside Gaza.
Just to keep militants away. a buffer zone created by destruction.
That was the stated reason, but then, interestingly, he later conceded it's not legitimate.
He actually said that, not legitimate.
Yes, and another soldier was even blunter, said the mission was just revenge. They killed us, and now we're going to kill them. Simple as that, in his view.
So a mix of strategic destruction and raw retribution seems to be part of the picture these soldiers paint.
That's what comes across. And remember, these aren't just a couple of isolated voices.
This is breaking the silence, a whole collection.
Exactly. Soldiers from different ranks, conscripts, officers. There's a consistency that lends them authenticity, you know?
And does it line up with other known facts?
It does. It aligns with documented policies about clearing large areas, expanding that buffer zone, creating safe routes for troops.
So the official actions seem to match what the soldiers are describing.
Pretty closely, yeah. Reuters even quoted a soldier comparing the result, that raised perimeter, to Hiroshima.
Hiroshima, that's a powerful comparison.
It is. And the Breaking the Silence report itself, it got published widely. The Guardian newspaper actually interviewed 4 soldiers separately who backed up many of these details.
So independent corroboration, too.
Yes. And the group's director warned, these stories might sound unbelievable to average Israelis, but they reflect routine life on the front lines.
There was also that really disturbing quote about dehumanizing language, wasn't there?
Yes. A soldier told Haaretz, part of this project, that the army taught them from day one that Palestinians are roaches, termites.
Oh, that's awful.
So we treated them as such. That kind of language, that dehumanization, it surfaces repeatedly. It's a disturbing undercurrent.
And the overall feeling from these soldiers? Are they okay with what happened?
Not uniformly, no. The testimonies consistently show people, many veterans, wrestling with this, a wounded conscience, often echoing that sentiment that the destruction, especially the homes, felt not legitimate.
Okay, so that's the spoken word, the testimonies. But you mentioned visual and audio evidence, too, stuff that backs this up.
Yes, and what's really striking here is that a lot of this evidence was captured by the soldiers themselves.
They recorded themselves.
Yes, and shared it. On social media, news channels picked it up. It started appearing right from the beginning of the conflict.
So this isn't just secondhand accounts.
No. Al Jazeera did a big investigation. They called it the first live-streamed genocide, released April 2025.
Strong title.
Very. They compiled tons of these videos posted online by soldiers, called it a treasure trove, potentially, for prosecutors, real-time documentation.
What kind of things did these videos show? Give us some examples.
Well, some are incredibly graphic. One video shows an Israeli sniper filming unarmed Palestinians just walking down a highway.
Filming them through the scope.
It appears so. Another piece of footage, this one from a French-Israeli soldier's helmet cam. It's hard to describe.
Go on.
It zooms in on a detainee. He's bound, clearly beaten up, and the soldier is just jeering at him. Cruel stuff, saying he pissed himself, was being tortured. The camera pans over the body.
Just casually cruel.
Exactly. Al Jazeera pointed out this kind of casual cruelty seems like a direct violation of the Geneva Conventions. The rules about treating prisoners humanely.
Right, the basic standards of war. And beyond treatment of individuals, what about the destruction we talked about? Was that filmed too?
Oh, absolutely. Thousands of clips apparently document soldiers gleefully planting explosives on houses, schools, mosques, shops.
Gleefully.
Yeah, often joking, celebrating as they detonate these buildings like it's a party.
That's deeply unsettling.
Compilations of these videos note that these acts, this wanton destruction, appear to violate both Geneva Conventions and the Hague Regulations, more international laws on warfare.
So clear violations, according to legal experts.
Bill Van Esveld from Human Rights Watch commented on this. He said, much of the destruction appears to lack any legitimate military justification, making it a clear violation of international law. He added, the evidence for wanton destruction is just overwhelming.
And did the videos show actual combat situations involving civilians?
Yes. Some are even more direct combat videos. They seem to show executions.
Executions, really?
Snipers filming themselves aiming at and apparently hitting fleeing civilians. Soldiers firing mounted machine guns into crowds scattering below.
Oh my God.
Al Jazeera called the sniper videos among the most shocking pieces of evidence. They noted each recorded kill is a potential war crime under the Rome Statute, that's the treaty for the International Criminal Court.
There was one specific incident that got a lot of attention involving young girls.
Yes, that was particularly horrific. A paratrooper filmed himself shooting 2 young girls in a courtyard.
He filmed himself doing it.
Yes, and then proudly told his companion about it. Said something like, I just went to Gaza, there were 2 little girls playing football, so what did I do? Took my weapon, shot them in the head.
That's just Unbelievable. No wonder it made headlines.
It generated massive international outrage, yeah. And sadly, it wasn't totally isolated. By December 2023, quite a few videos like this were going viral.
More examples.
There was another one, an Israeli soldier quipping, "We're looking for babies, but there are no babies left."
Telling.
And then he commented about maybe killing a 12-year-old girl. The casualness, the reported air of pride shocked people. Arab News said even many Israelis were outraged by the raw hatred on display.
And then there were the still images, the really graphic stuff shared online.
Right. This brings us to that Telegram channel. 72 Virgins Uncensored.
Run by the IDF itself.
Initially denied, but yes, the IDF later admitted running it after a Haaretz investigation. It showed truly grotesque scenes from Gaza. Dead Palestinians.
With captions.
Yeah, captions like, "Exterminating the roaches, exterminating the Hamas rats, share this beauty." Dehumanizing language again, paired with horrific images.
Just awful. And there were other reports, too, about bullets.
Yes, unconfirmed reports and videos circulated appearing to show troops dipping bullets in pig fat, a clear attempt to mock and desecrate, aimed at Gaza's Muslim population.
So this pattern of dehumanization in words, in actions, in images, it's quite stark.
It really is. And these images, these videos, they're not just sitting on the internet, they're becoming part of the evidence dossier.
Leading to legal action.
Yes. In October 2024, a criminal complaint was filed in the Netherlands with the International Criminal Court. It named over 1,000 Israeli soldiers linked to clips like these.
Alleging what specifically?
Inhumane and unnecessary practices, likely qualifying as war crimes. So human rights investigators are scrambling now to archive all this digital evidence.
It's like Al Jazeera said, maybe the first conflict where perpetrators are live streaming evidence of possible war crimes.
A truly chilling thought. And the impact isn't just legal or on the victims. There's this concept of moral injury.
What's that?
Sociologist Simon Jones talks about it. Even civilians just witnessing this footage can experience it. It's a term from combat veterans, forced to do things violating their moral.
But it applies to witnesses, too.
Psychologists are using it that way now, yeah. For the distress people feel, being horrified witnesses feeling powerless.
Right. Okay, so we have the soldier testimonies, the visual evidence, but this isn't happening in a vacuum, is it? What about the broader society in Israel?
That's a really crucial piece of this. The sources we looked at point strongly towards significant societal complicity, or at least widespread support, for the Gaza campaign within Israel.
How do we know that? Polls, public statements.
Both. Surveys consistently show overwhelming public backing for the military operation, which, naturally limits pressure on leaders to change course or investigate allegations.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
One poll found nearly 58% of Israelis thought the IDF used too little firepower in Gaza.
Too little. Wow.
Yeah. And there seems to be this common feeling among large parts of the public that criticizing the war is like betraying Israeli victims.
So criticism equals disloyalty.
That seems to be the prevailing sentiment for many. And the Israeli media, according to analysts we read, has played a big role in cementing this.
How so?
By consistently framing the Gaza assault as this righteous national mission. Rarely questioning civilian deaths in Gaza, Ado Conrad called Israel's media long subservient, filling the public with this sense of righteousness.
Like a feedback loop.
Kind of. Oren Persico put it even more strongly. He called mainstream news propaganda full of lies, just mirroring the society's militant mood uncritically.
And this kind of atmosphere, it must make it hard for anyone who disagrees to speak out.
Extremely hard. Since October 7th, dissent has been met with real repression. Anti-war protests, often banned, broken up by police.
Any specific examples?
One incident, peace activists holding signs saying, "Stop the massacre." Simple signs. They were detained before their rally even started.
On what grounds?
Police said the signs were offensive to public sentiment. It shows how even just advocating for sparing non-combatants can be treated as like a criminal act.
And it's not just protests, right? It's online, too.
Absolutely. The outlet Plus 972 Mag reports on a wave of political persecution. Israeli citizens, especially Arabs or Jewish leftists, getting called in, interrogated, sometimes arrested overnight.
Just for social media posts.
Just for social media posts criticizing the war, students suspended from university, professors fired, families questioned, all for voicing opposition.
There was a case involving a college instructor.
Yes, an Arab-Israeli instructor, accused of aiding murderers and supporting genocide. Why? For reposting an image saying the Gaza ghetto will be liberated.
That's it.
Apparently. It highlights how calls to stop the war, or even tweets expressing sympathy for Gazans, can be twisted into aid to the enemy.
So while dissent is squashed, nationalism gets amplified.
Exactly. Pro-war marches, routinely cleared by police. Anti-war vigils, shut down. Even those human shield caravans trying to protect Gaza hospitals were labeled aid to terrorists by some.
It sounds like a very polarized, high-pressure environment.
Deeply. And some critics are drawing disturbing parallels to history. Bosnia, Rwanda, places where societies mobilized for mass killing while the world sort of looked away.
Invoking the never again plan.
Yeah, saying it feels dangerously frayed. One observer compared the silence in some quarters now to the mindset before those genocides. It's a heavy comparison.
And this complicity, or maybe conformity, it goes beyond the public, into institutions.
It seems so. Israeli universities mostly silent on Gaza, the judiciary upholding censorship orders, even strangely the World Cup broadcaster muting tributes to Palestinian suffering.
So it's a consensus enforced by law and culture.
That's how it's presented, and psychologists warn about this collective moral injury again. When a society turns away from truth, it can lead to a kind of national numbness.
As the peace activist said.
Silence is complicity.
Yeah. Okay, let's shift to the legal angle then. All these actions we've discussed, the destruction, the killings, the displacement, how does international law view them?
Well, under international law, many of these acts could very well be considered war crimes, potentially even acts contributing to genocide, depending on intent and scale.
What laws specifically?
The Geneva Conventions are key. They strictly forbid deliberately targeting civilians, wanton destruction of property without military necessity, and forcibly displacing people.
Forcible displacement, like the evacuation orders.
Human Rights Watch specifically calls Israel's evacuation orders in Gaza the war crime of forcible transfer. They say it's a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions and a crime under the Rome Statute.
Even if it's supposedly for safety.
Forcing people from their homes, even for military reasons or settlements, can be prosecuted as a crime against humanity. The law is quite clear on protecting civilians from forced movement.
And what about the term genocide? It's a heavy word, legally complex.
It is. The UN's Genocide Convention obligates states to punish acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Proving that specific intent is the high legal bar.
But are people saying that bar might be met here?
Yes. Despite the difficulty of proving intent, the actions in Gaza have raised serious alarms. Amnesty International, for instance, did extensive research.
And their conclusion?
In December 2024, they concluded that the government of Israel has committed and is continuing to commit genocide against Palestinians in the occupied Gaza Strip. They documented acts prohibited by the convention, done with, in their assessment, specific intent.
That's a huge finding from a major human rights group.
Absolutely. And it's not just them. The International Court of Justice, the ICJ.
The UN's top court.
Right. Acting on South Africa's lawsuit, in January 2024, they ordered Israel to take all measures to prevent genocidal acts.
An emergency measure.
Exactly. And the UN Special Rapporteur for Palestinian Territories warned that credible evidence now meets the genocide threshold.
And this has led to action against individuals, too.
Yes. In November 2024, the International Criminal Court, the ICC, issued arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Gallant.
On what charges?
War crimes and crimes against humanity. It sends a clear signal that senior leaders could be held accountable.
What about other countries? Israel's allies, do they have legal responsibilities here?
Very much so. Under international law, nations supplying weapons or training could be deemed complicit if those tools are used for atrocities.
Complicit just by supplying arms?
Potentially, yes, if they know those arms are likely to be used illegally. UN human rights experts stress this point. They say the Genocide Convention requires states to use all reasonable means to prevent genocide elsewhere.
Which means what in practice?
They argue it necessitates halting arms exports in the present circumstances. Stop sending weapons.
Have any countries actually done that?
Several European countries and Japan have suspended military sales, yes, citing these concerns.
What did the UN experts say exactly? It sounds quite forceful.
It was blunt. All states must not be complicit in international crimes through arms transfers. They must do their part to urgently end the unrelenting humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. They also pointed out arms manufacturers have responsibilities too and risk complicity.
So, continuing to arm Israel, given these findings and warnings, could be seen as an illegal act itself.
That's the clear legal argument being made, that it amounts to complicity under international conventions.
So the wheels of international justice are turning, however slowly.
The groundwork is being laid. Through the ICC investigations, potential national lawsuits using universal jurisdiction, human rights groups like Amnesty and HRW are pushing hard.
Pushing for what?
Criminal probes into specific IDF units, into commanders, concrete steps, UN investigations, national courts stepping up, enforcing the bans on genocide and crimes against humanity.
Because the alternative is.
As HRW put it, if massive forced displacement and targeting civilians isn't checked by law, history will just record a massive failure of justice.
Wow, okay. So bringing this all together, the testimonies, the videos, the societal context, the legal analysis, it paints a picture that's hard to ignore. It feels like a real crack in the usual narrative.
It does feel that way. The consistency across these different kinds of sources points towards, well, a kind of moral verdict taking shape.
So for you listening, if any of this has been shocking or deeply disturbing, maybe now really is the time to break the silence, as the Veterans Group is called.
Yeah, it means grappling with these uncomfortable truths, supporting whistleblowers, allowing open debate, holding governments accountable.
It's a choice, isn't it, between engaging that collective conscience or just continuing denial?
Absolutely. And for the wider world, the international community, the ethical duties seem pretty stark too.
What specifically?
An immediate stop to weapons flows, military aid, joint exercises while these allegations are properly investigated. That seems like the baseline ethical response.
And beyond stopping arms?
National governments demanding accountability, fact-finding missions, UN inquiries, committing seriously to prosecuting atrocity crimes, because neutrality, it isn't really an option when civilians are allegedly being annihilated on this scale. International law demands intervention legally, diplomatically.
So what can people actually do? What are concrete steps?
Supporting boycott and divestment campaigns is one avenue people choose. Amplifying these eyewitness accounts, we've talked about sharing them.
Getting a word out.
Exactly. Providing resources, if you can, to the human rights groups, the lawyers pursuing these cases. Protecting and circulating whistleblower material is also vital.
And keeping the focus where it needs to be.
Crucially, yes. Keep the focus on Gaza's civilians, their suffering, the staggering death toll. Don't let that get lost in the politics or the legal arguments.
This deep dive, it's uncovered some incredibly difficult information. It leaves you feeling heavy.
The horrors described are just too consistent, too well documented across different sources to simply dismiss. The real question isn't if we heard them, it's how we'll act on what we've heard.
Because silence has consequences.
As long as mass killing, or alleged mass killing, goes unanswered, those echoes of silence just get louder. But, it's important to say, it's not too late.
Not too late. For what?
To stem the slide into lawlessness.